The call came at 6:42 p.m. Just as the city lights began to glow through Emma Carter's apartment window in Chicago, she answered without saying hello. She didn't need to. The pause on the line told her everything. When the voice finally spoke, careful and distant, the last steady piece of her life slipped out of place. The call ended quickly. The room stayed quiet. And Emma sat there, 38 years old, single, and suddenly unsure how to breathe through the weight in her chest. She didn't cry. Not yet. She stood at the sink, watching the faucet drip, counting each sound like it was keeping her upright. Emma had learned how to survive moments like this by staying busy, staying calm, staying reasonable. That night, none of it worked. The silence followed her from room to room like a shadow. She picked up her phone without knowing why. Her contacts blurred as she scrolled. Friends would worry. Family would ask questions she couldn't answer. She needed someone who would not fix things, not judge, not rush her through the pain. A message appeared before she could decide. "Hey, Emma. Just wanted to check in. You crossed my mind today." Lucas. She stared at the name longer than she meant to. He was 22. Too young, too kind, too easy to talk to. They had met months earlier at a community art center on the north side where Emma volunteered on weekends to fill the space work couldn't. Lucas helped organize exhibits and events between college classes. He was polite, observant, and unusually thoughtful for someone his age. At first, they had talked about art, then books, then life in general. He listened in a way that surprised her, not eager to impress, not distracted. Emma had noticed that, long before she ever noticed him. Her thumbs hovered over the screen. She could ignore it. She should ignore it. Instead, she typed, "I'm not okay." The reply came fast. "Do you want to talk?" "I can listen." That was all it took. They talked that night while rain tapped against Emma's windows. She didn't tell Lucas everything. She didn't need to. She spoke about feeling worn down, about plans that never turned into the life she imagined, about being strong for so long that she forgot what support felt like. Lucas stayed quiet when she needed space and spoke when she needed grounding. When they finally said goodnight, the clock read 1:14 a.m. Emma set her phone down and felt something unfamiliar relief. The next morning came too soon. Emma woke with the same heaviness, but it felt different now, softer around the edges. Her phone buzzed again. "Hope you slept okay?" She smiled despite herself. Days passed, then weeks. Conversations became part of her routine. Not intense, not dramatic, just steady. Lucas checked in. Emma answered. They talked about his classes, her job, small frustrations, small wins. There was no pressure, no expectation, just presence. Emma noticed changes in herself before she understood them. She laughed more easily. She felt lighter walking to work. She caught herself looking forward to her phone buzzing. She told herself it was friendship. They met for coffee after an art opening one Friday evening. The cafe was crowded, warm, loud in a comforting way. Lucas arrived early, standing when he saw her. Nervous but smiling. Emma noticed how tall he was now, how his voice had settled into something calm and steady. They talked fast like they always did, words overlapping, time slipping away unnoticed. Emma realized she hadn't thought about the call from weeks ago once during the conversation. That scared her more than the pain ever had. When they stepped outside, the air was cool. They stood on the sidewalk longer than necessary, neither in a hurry to leave. "I'm glad we met," Lucas said, eyes steady, voice careful. Emma nodded. "Me too." She walked home alone that night, replaying the moment again and again. She knew that pause meant something. She also knew she couldn't let it grow. She pulled back. Replies came slower, messages shorter. She told herself she was doing the right thing. Lucas didn't push. He noticed, though. She could feel it in the spaces between words. Life kept moving. Work demanded attention. Friends invited her out. Emma smiled, showed up, went through the motions. But late at night, when the city quieted, she felt the absence of those steady conversations like a missing step in the dark. The call came on a Sunday evening. "I don't want to be a problem," Lucas said, "but I feel like I did something wrong." Emma closed her eyes. "You didn't." They agreed to meet the next day at a small park by the lake. The sky was gray, the water calm. They sat on a bench, hands folded separately, space between them that felt louder than any argument. "I didn't expect this," Emma said quietly. "I didn't plan for you to matter to me." Lucas looked out at the water. "I didn't either." They spoke carefully, honestly, about timing, about age, about how comfort can turn into connection without permission. No one raised their voice. No one crossed a line. It was the most serious conversation Emma had had in years. When they stood to leave, Lucas hesitated. "I don't need answers right now," he said. "I just didn't want to disappear." Emma nodded. "You won't." As she walked away, Emma knew she had reached the edge of something she couldn't name yet. She didn't know what would happen next. She only knew one thing with certainty. The quiet she once feared no longer felt empty. Emma didn't expect the text to hit her like it did. It was late, almost midnight tanned. The city outside her window was quiet except for the hum of traffic below. Her phone lit up with a simple message. "I don't want to lose you." She froze, thumb hovering, reading it over and over. She had tried to pull back, to be careful, to remind herself of the gap between them, of the age difference, of the practical reasons why this should stay nothing more than friendship. But the words were heavy, urgent, and impossible to ignore. Lucas was 22, full of life and hope, yet here he was, exposing something raw, something unguarded. Emma felt a pull in her chest, a mixture of worry, longing, and something she hadn't admitted in months. She missed him too much already. She replied quickly, keeping it neutral but honest. "Let's meet. We need to talk." The next day, the park by the lake seemed to understand their tension. Gray clouds hung low, a gentle breeze moving across the water. Emma arrived first, fidgeting with her coat, trying to calm the tightness in her chest. Lucas arrived a few minutes later, umbrella in hand, eyes scanning the ground before finally meeting hers. There was an unspoken recognition in that glance. Both of them knew they were crossing a line that had already started to shift months ago. They walked slowly along the edge of the lake, words beginning to tumble out before either could stop them. Lucas spoke first. "I didn't expect to feel this connected. Didn't expect to care like I do." His voice was quiet, almost afraid, but honest. Emma nodded, feeling the lump in her throat. She had felt the same way, but admitting it aloud made it real. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "I just needed someone when life got too heavy, and you were there. You still are." Lucas stopped and looked at her fully. Not the way a young man looks at someone he wants to impress, but fully, as if he could see inside her. "I've never met anyone like you. You make me feel grounded, like it's okay to pause and just be." Emma swallowed hard, aware of how fast her heart was racing. She wanted to tell him to step back, to not overthink it, to protect himself, but she couldn't. She wanted him near, wanted to hear him speak, wanted to feel the quiet strength that had become her anchor over the past months. They sat on a bench by the water, both looking out at the waves lapping gently against the shore. Neither reached for the other, yet they both leaned slightly closer, as if proximity could bridge the distance that reason demanded. "We need to be honest," Emma said finally. "We can't pretend this is just casual. I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want you to hold back your life because of me." Lucas nodded slowly, eyes serious. "I know. I don't want to be something that keeps you from happiness either. But I can't pretend I don't feel this." There was silence after that, but it wasn't awkward. It was filled with understanding, filled with the weight of truth neither wanted to avoid. Emma realized how rare it was to meet someone who could be so caring, so present, without needing to take anything. Lucas had a maturity in his kindness that didn't feel forced, The weeks that followed were a careful dance. They saw each other in public spaces, always polite, always friendly, but always lingering just a little too long on shared conversations. They texted daily, sometimes lightly joking, sometimes opening up about fears and insecurities. Emma found herself looking forward to the buzz of her phone more than she had in years. Lucas brought a lightness into her life she hadn't known she was missing. One rainy afternoon, they met at a quiet cafe near her apartment. They sat across from each other, steam rising from coffee cups, hands close but not touching. Outside, rain drew patterns on the window pane. Emma watched Lucas stir his coffee slowly, eyes on her as if he could see her thoughts. "I keep thinking about the future," she said softly, almost afraid to speak. "Not in a planning way, but in a wondering if we can make this work, given everything." Lucas leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I don't care about the age or what others might think. I care about how we are together. That's all that matters to me." Emma's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to give herself permission to let him in completely. But life had taught her caution. She had learned that timing could break even the strongest connection. They walked home in the drizzle, sharing an umbrella, staying close enough to feel each other's presence without needing words. That night, Emma lay awake thinking about him, thinking about the subtle power of companionship, about how emotional intimacy could arrive before romantic labels were even named. She felt both fear and excitement, fear of the complications ahead, excitement at the possibility of something meaningful. Months passed. Their connection deepened quietly. They celebrated small victories together, a promotion at her work, a successful project at his university. They shared meals, long walks, late-night conversations over messaging apps that carried the same sincerity as their in-person moments. Emma realized she hadn't felt this understood in years, and Lucas discovered a stability he had rarely known at 22, yet reality crept in, subtle but persistent. People noticed their closeness. Friends made comments that carried unintended weight. Lucas had college responsibilities, social circles that couldn't always understand the nuances of their bond. Emma knew the world would judge the gap between them. She felt it as a constant pressure, a shadow lurking in the bright moments they shared. One evening, sitting quietly in her apartment after a long day, Emma said the words she had been holding back for weeks. "I don't want to be something that holds you back. I don't want to be a mistake." Lucas took her hand gently, surprising her with the tenderness of the gesture. "And I don't want to be someone you regret. I just want to be honest about how I feel." It was a moment of clarity. They understood that love wasn't always about staying together. Sometimes it was about showing up for each other, learning, growing, and then letting life guide them forward. They didn't part with anger, with blame, or with regret. They parted with gratitude, with respect, and with the quiet ache of knowing timing was as important as desire. Emma walked away that night carrying the warmth of their shared moments. Lucas walked away with a deeper understanding of connection than he had known at 22. They didn't erase each other from memory. They didn't erase the lessons learned in quiet companionship, in honesty, in the rare and precious gift of someone being there when life felt too heavy to bear alone. Some chapters don't last forever. Some connections are fleeting, but the lessons, the care, and the emotional growth last much longer. Emma and Lucas carried those lessons. And sometimes that is more than enough. Even months later, when Emma visited the lake where they had shared that pivotal conversation, she would feel a smile rise unexpectedly. Not a smile of regret, not of longing, but of recognition. They had met when they needed each other most, and that, above all else, would never be forgotten. The story of them was not about forever, was about presence, about support, about understanding and emotional honesty, and that made it real. That made it lasting, and that made it worth remembering.